Hello, everybody. Amber here. Welcome back to In Conversation with ATF. My guest today is a voice director, a casting director, a talent coordinator. She's done it all. Now, okay, just bear with me. She's done quite a bit. So just sit down and relax and just listen. She was the co-voice director. She co-voice directed Dexter's Laboratory, The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest and Johnny Bravo, along with Kris Zimmerman. And then my guest, went on to voice direct Kenny and the Chimp, which was a short that then developed into Codename Kids Next Door, which he also voice directed. The original Powerpuff Girls, What's New Scooby Doo, Duck Dodgers, Chowder, Generator Rex, Scooby Doo Mystery Incorporated, Wacky Races, the video game, one of my all-time favorites, Scooby Doo and the Cyber Chase. Whatever happened to Robot Jones? I have no idea. I'm not even related to Robot Jones, I don't think. Mucha Lucha, the Looney Tunes show, Ultimate Spider-Man, Be Cool Scooby Doo, Muppet Babies, the 2018 version, Masters of the Universe, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, the two different series, don't get them confused now, Pupstruction, and more recently, Hot Wheels Let's Race, and this isn't more recently, but it's an honorable mention, The Jetsons and WWE Robo WrestleMania. Really good film, that, I tell you. She's also voice directed, right? Batman Arkham Asylum, Batman Arkham City. So those two I'm just so excited to talk about, right? You don't know how excited I am. She was the casting director for the four special Scooby-Doo movies. So that's Alien Invaders, Witch's Ghost, Zombie Island, and Cyber Chase. She was also the casting director for I Am Weasel, Cow and Chicken, and many other shows. She has voice directed 12 actors in Emmy Award nominated performances and voice directed or dialogue directed 5 Emmy Award winning performances. And she's also voice directed a lot of the Scooby-Doo direct-to-video movies, name it, all over the years and stuff, like Sword of the Scoob recently and everything. Okay, I'm just blabbering on now. No, yeah. My guest is Collette Sunderman. Hi, Colette. It's Colette. Hi, I'm so sorry. I stumbled at the end. I was like, whoa, where do I go from here? I'm like, okay, but enough about me blabbering. No, my guest is Collette Sunderman. Hi, Colette. How are you?
I'm excellent. How are you? I'm so happy to be here with you. Finally, we've been trying to do this for a while, so
Yes,
huzzah.
we have. Yeah, huzzah, huzzah, huzzah. And one thing I forgot to mention is the unknown US dub of Finley the Fire Engine that no one ever talks about. Anyways, enough of me blabbering. Now let's get into your career, Colette. Now, as I've just mentioned, that is a lot of stuff to take care of in an interview. So I'm gonna try and shrink it down to probably like my most notable mentions, if that makes sense. But wow, I'm starstruck to be talking to you right now. I've seen you in so many credits. I've heard so many people talk about you, like Frank. I've heard Frank Welker talk about you. I've heard people like Tara Strong speak about you, and just everyone I know has something, at least one thing to say about you. It is amazing.
Hopefully the one thing is good, but
Of course it
could be.
is. If it wasn't good, I wouldn't be saying that right now. I'd be like, oh yes. So, Colette, I'd like to know how your career got started. Of course, it says, according to the internet, that you got your start working at Hanna-Barbera, co-voice directing shows with Kris Zimmerman. But how did you get started in the business?
Well, to back up and to be perfectly honest, I think co-directing is a little too much credit. I was assistant director, but at that point in time, I was basically doing and learning circle edit note taking. I had nothing to do with direction. Kris Zimmerman
Oh,
needs no one to
right.
co-direct with her. She is a master at what she does, and I was very, very blessed to have been mentored by her. I got to work with her side by side for 6 months before she left Hanna-Barbera. And so in that time, because the way that Hanna-Barbera was set up, we had one recording department, one casting and recording department, which was Kris Zimmerman. And
Yeah.
I supported her and I got to work alongside her with every show we were producing then. So there's a lot of booth time. So to say that I took to directing like a duck to water is a little bit, I don't know, too simplistic. I think that I was able to watch Kris do, sitting at the feet of the master, whom she also got to sit at the feet of Gordon Hunt and Andrea Romano and Jenny McSwain. We all came from that cloth of Hanna-Barbera. Very
Yeah.
lucky.
Yeah.
So no, I didn't assist direct. Or co-direct. I assist. They called it ADing, but it was more note taking for.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say I saw co-voice director. Was like, what is it? I couldn't remember just the term assistant voice director. It just completely went out of my head, and I was like,
Yeah.
second director. I don't know. I was at the time. I was just thinking, oh god, what have I done? But yeah,
It's
going
okay.
back to mention those Hanna-Barbera All Stars. I didn't get giddy about Andrea Romano. She signed my headphones there on
I
the camera
love
receipt.
that.
She has
Yeah.
this
Oh,
exact pair of cat headphones, so that's why she signed mine. So bit of an odd thing. She
another.
never signed a pair of headphones, but but yeah, honestly, I'm jealous. Ginny, I briefly had contact with a few years back, but I've not really spoken to her since. I think like it was before I met Frank Welker. I reached out to her. Gordon, he passed away before I could have any contact with him. But from what I heard, he was a strong
Amazing.
force. Yeah, he did a lot.
Yeah. I did not have the honor. I knew him. I met him because of Kris. I didn't have the honor of working with him one on one, but I have to say that if you were to similarities in the way the directing, the way the Hanna-Barbera, we always refer to it as the college, that we were all, it was the best way to learn animation because you learn from beginning to end. When I was brought into the recording department, I believe it was in 95, 94? Anyways, yeah, I was sorry. I was just doing a little bit
That's
of math.
okay.
When I was brought into the recording department, you could put us all in the room together, and you could see similarities in the way that we direct. And I think that that ended with me when we closed the recording department at Hanna-Barbera, and we kind of were folded into Warner Brothers, AOL at that time. Time Warner, Ted Turner had bought, the Hanna-Barbera library. So there was a
Yeah.
lot of transitioning going on there. And then ultimately we did a lot of that for a couple of years, and then it was decided that it would be a good idea for Cartoon Network to open up. So but to go back and to tell you how I got started, it is a very wonderful for me interesting
Mm-hmm.
transition, because when I started at Hanna-Barbera, I literally worked as a like a paralegal, but in the business affairs department,
Mm-hmm.
where I worked with the one of the lawyers that did all of the contracts for the writers and the directors. So I got to meet a lot of them. And at that time, we were all in house. Unlike now, there are a lot of people who are, on
Yeah.
contract. So, and they would always come by my office and go, I don't understand why you're in the business affairs department. This is so not you. You're more creative than this. Fast forward, Kris Zimmerman needed somebody to come down and to support her, and had that, the reason why she picked me was because she figured I had a lot of know-how when it came to contracts. That was one of my jobs, was doing the SAG contracts, filling all that out. I also we did everything via storyboard. So I did all the storyboards. I took storyboards and I turned them into the dialogue script that the talent read from. And ultimately, because Kris left, it was seen that there was a transition in between where we had another person come in and do it. They left, and so then the powers that be at that point in time, Davis Doy, he then decided that I should be running the department and I should be directing. So
Ooh.
it is a very interesting transition from legal to creative, but
Mhm.
it was a very smooth transition. And again, kudos to all those who went before, because I literally got to learn the what I think is the best way. And I've been told by many that the way that we do our job is probably most efficient.
100%, yeah. And you worked on a lot of the A lot of good things in the late 90s. Of course, you got the original Powerpuff Girls series. You've got the Scooby Doo video movies. Now, I want to know what it was like during you were the casting coordinator director, right?
For Scooby Doo, well, some of those, no, I did both casting and dialogue. Yeah,
Oh, right, okay. I was gonna say because I saw you did Cyber Chase, but I couldn't find a credit for the other three.
yeah.
Um, Yeah, but like, okay, so I've got to know because obviously this has like a different cast from what they originally did for Scooby Doo. Of course, they had Frank Welker back as Freddie Jones, but you had like Scott Innes, you had B.J. Ward, you had Mary Kay Bergman. I was just wondering, like, and of course, you had Billy West as Shaggy, and then you had obviously Scott Innes as Shaggy after Zombie Island. So, what was it like casting these actors aside from
Yeah.
Frank Welker? What was it like? Did they want a different take on these characters? How did the casting go about for those?
Mary Kay Bergman was already set when I got there. BJ
Mm-hmm.
Ward was also already set as Velma from the original cast. That had already been taken. That took place before me. I'm not
Okay.
sure if it was Gordon Hunt or and BJ is Gordon's wife. So that there was a beautiful thing there. The woman was amazingly talented.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of walked into those two. Mary Kay Bergman was amazing. And then after Mary Kay passed away, I then had the privilege of finding the next Daphne, which has been Gray Delisle since. Gray Griffin Delisle. Not sure where she's going by now, but Gray Delisle at the time,
I think both names. I'm not sure.
or both names. She's
Yeah.
hyphenated.
Very
But
Griffin.
she has been my Daphne since. Scott Innes, it was a manhunt, and at that time, taking on or listening to, at that time there wasn't MP3s, there was nothing other than people were sending CDs and they were
Oh,
sending,
cassette,
yeah, oh my
cassette
goodness,
tapes.
it was not as simple as it is now. So there was a lot of listening to a lot of Shaggies. Um, Scott Innes came in when Casey Kasem
Yeah,
was a vegan. He
yeah,
was a
because
vegan.
yeah,
And so in that particular Scooby, we were placed down in Louisiana, and the powers of the creatives wanted to be able to have them eating gumbo and everything not vegan, not
yeah,
just ice cream, without any dairy pizzas, But so there was a manhunt, and Scott Ennis was deemed the chosen one, and
yeah,
he played with us for a few of those. And then Casey came back and did,
yeah.
and then ultimately I also had the pleasure of bringing in Matt Lillard, who was the
Oh
Shaggy
yeah.
in the live action. So for a couple of our series, we had Maddie. The crown glory or jewel in my crown on that one was we brought Casey back to actually voice Shaggy's dad right before he passed away. So that was
That
beyond an honor.
reminds me, yeah, because Frank Welker voiced Fred's dad in the new Velma series, so it's sort of like, yeah. Well, I was gonna
Yeah,
say because before Scott, and after Casey, there was Billy West for Zombie
right,
Island. So
right.
was he busy after Zombie Island,
You know
or
what?
did he?
I'm not sure exactly, and I can't remember. I have to go back and look at my notes why we did a transition. Being busy would not more than likely would be at the top of the list of why, because Billy was insanely busy and is
Yeah,
insanely
yeah,
busy.
he
Another one of
still
the
is. Yes,
doesn't stop, thank God, because
he's amazing, honestly.
he's amazing.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think that probably was it. So that's why Scott came in, and at one point in time, Scott also was doing Scooby. He also voiced Scooby.
Yes, he
Um,
did. Yes.
and we transitioned Frank Welker. It was really funny because Frank came to me and said, "You know what? I would love to try Scooby. Would you mind?" And I'm like, "No, I've been begging for this, because Frank was Freddie Jones, always has been, the one and only,
Yeah.
and he sat in the booth with Don Messick and all the greats, and through all of the different transitions. So when Frank decided he wanted to be Scooby, there was no question to anybody, and the producers were elated. Not as much as I was, but yeah. So that's anything Frank wants to do, we're gonna let Saint Francis, as we call him in the business.
Yeah, I was
He's
gonna
amazing.
say.
He can do everything and anything.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
for What's New Scooby Doo, they had a Mindy Cohn. I believe that's how you say her last name. Voice of Alma, and then it was sort of 2015 when Kate Micucci, I think that's how you say her name, took over, and then Frank's just been there since the very start. There's no plans to replace him, so yeah, he's the driving force.
Yep. Yep. There was a need for a transition between Mindy and Kate was like the number one pop in the head at that point in time. I think it was Scott Gerald's and I were talking, and we were both, oh, she'd be amazing. Let's get our fingers crossed. Maybe she'll come and play with us. And she did, and she hasn't left since. And we're so grateful for that.
I was gonna say, because I don't think since the crypto one, I don't think there's been another Scooby Doo. I presume there would have been one released last year, but still, I've not heard any news about another one. Are they still making them?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. How could they not? I mean, that just needs to go on and on and on forever and ever and ever. It's like SpongeBob or even.
Oh yeah, it never ends. So
It's
Simpsons,
never ending because but last year was an interesting year, and the year before it started kind of dwindling. So 2024 we were all hit pretty hard. So I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't another one in the works.
Yeah, I really hope so. Yeah, I miss seeing them come out every year and just recognizing using the cast list. And it's like, oh, there's Fred Tatasciore. Oh, there's Tara Strong. You see all these different people and stuff, and you're thinking, wow, that's so exciting. But yeah, just okay. I've got to ask you this. This is guilty pleasure. Have you got a favorite Frank Welker story from all the times that you've worked with him?
It's so funny that you would ask, because when I was talking about, I want to say this was back at Johnny Quest when I was,
wow,
when I was ADing. I mean, it was emotional, mind you. I'm new, right? You have to understand. I went from a 9 to 5er up in business affairs, very legalistic, very, very, get work done, brought down to what I thought was going to be similar. But I got thrown in the booth. So I'm sitting in a recording booth with these masters next to me. Ed Collins was our engineer. Kris Zimmerman is our voice director. And the talent in front of me. And I'm pinching myself on a daily because I'm paid to be in the recording booth and not, it was just unrealistic and mind-blowing for me. So, okay, to answer your question, yes, Johnny Quest. As you know, Frank, he does every sound that you can possibly think of and voices every animal and every ghoul and everything. And in this particular Johnny Quest, it was the death of an elephant. And so Frank gets up. Look at him get all poof. He gets up and he's going to perform. He's going to honor this elephant and how it dies and how he does it. And you have to understand that we've got 3 people sitting in the booth, and then all the talent is on the other side of the glass, and then behind us are the producers and the writers and the whomever else is going to be in there for the recording to make sure that we stay on task. And he does his performance of a dying elephant. I know this sounds crazy, but I wish that I had videoed it. It was dead silence. After that, no one could talk, no one moved, including Frank, because he got into it and you could feel it. But it was such a performance, Amber, that I wish that I could share with the world, because out of all the thousands of performances he's done for me, that one always brings me and stops me.
Aww.
It was beautiful. Aww. It was. We were all just, yeah.
It just reminds me, Kat Susie did say about I've not gotten to interview her, but it does say there is a TV Tropes page on Frank Welker that has a quote from Kat Susie saying that Frank once portrayed a mother elephant being torn from her baby by ivory poachers for her tusks. So I didn't know if it was from the same thing.
It is.
Oh wow, okay. I thought it was from Captain Planet or something, because then she mentioned Captain Planet, so I'm like, wow.
No, I think it was Johnny Quest. Yeah. You know what? That was a long time ago, and I was new. If it was Captain Planet, Kath would know more than or better than I. I was just thrown in there, and I hadn't expected to such a performance, such a performance. So she even remembers the backstory more than I do. I just remember the performance and how we reacted to it. It was. I'm glad that both she and I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, I can't
I
believe
don't
it's the same thing.
I don't even remember anybody else being in the booth, but back then we did all only ensembles. So of course we would have had, and if we were silent on this side, equally. I mean, all I can see is Frank. He's amazing.
That actually reminds me of it was like a story of like how he was nearly fired from the role of Fred because when the producers of Zombie Island were watching back the tapes of Scooby Doo, like Frank's voice was more high pitched, and they were convinced, oh, he's doing it low pitched, he can't really do the voice anymore. But it turns out it was something to do with the tapes were slightly sped up to something commercials, or it was PAL pitch or something, so it made his voice sound a tiny bit higher. So then they're like, oh, right. So we nearly just fired him for no reason. So I was like, okay.
I remember that's part of my job, though. That part of my job, I actually covet. I protect it. I protect my talent. If
Yeah.
somebody comes in and before we just jump into, there's got to be a whole reasoning why. I want to know exactly what the concern is. Why? I mean, this person has done this forever. We need to honor it, and there needs to be some,
Yeah, I was gonna
reality.
say,
Yeah.
yeah, because there was a story that Tara Strong told a few years ago on another podcast that she said when she was on a Scooby Doo session with Frank, there was a newcomer who had come in. I'm not sure if this was one of yours or Andrea Romano's or even Kelly Ward, because he did a few of them. Who came in and was very cocky, and he started making remarks about Frank Welker's age and stuff like that. And he was so badly behaved that he wasn't allowed to work again, or something about people outside of California aren't allowed now to work on Scooby Doo movies or something. I don't know, but yeah, just wild. I don't know if it was one of your lot or.
It was. It was. And I
Oh
had to have
crap!
that
Oh god! Oh,
conversation. Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
god!
I had to have
I'm
that
so
conversation.
sorry.
No, no, it was, just that person going in and not knowing, the protocol. And you don't really have to know a protocol. It was, yeah, uncomfortable. That conversation outside of the booth, just that talent and it was uncomfortable, but it needed to be had. And
Wow.
nobody disrespects Frank Walker.
No. Oh man. But just like wow, just to.
That's
I,
another
I,
part of the job. That's
I was
another
gonna
part of,
say like.
yeah, it's not all just, yeah, it's as fun as May Margaret Whitman was little Susie and Johnny Bravo when she was
What?
4.
I know, and now she's having a baby of her own.
And we kept her going strong with
Yes,
just, yes,
I had Pat
let's bring
Music
her
on the
back
show.
when
We
she's in
spoke
her
about
20s,
that.
and let's just play with your voice. Let's play with the attitude. Let's play with what we can to keep you in that. I mean, it at a point it gets a little ridiculous, but I mean, I can picture her up on that stool. And
Oh,
Brenda Vaccaro, who is, Johnny's mama, uh, you know,
yeah.
Brenda is not unlike, we had talked earlier about Charlie Adler. There's no filter. She would say whatever she want, and I'd have to go, put kids in the room, kids in the room. Yeah,
Well,
well,
Charlie
yeah.
was like to me, "Oh, I don't swear." He asked us, "Are any of you guys under 18?" And we're like, "No." And then he starts going into a tirade of swear words for about 5 seconds, and he's like, "I never swear with any of the kids I voice direct, but with the adults, I'm something else." So I was like, "Okay, okay, we're in for a treat here." But yeah, honestly, just that is actually a good one. No, I asked you this, didn't I? Is it different to voice directing kids to voice directing adults? Or is it sort of like you've got to try and do you treat kids the same as you treat adults in the booth? Or do you simplify it?
Well, that's a great question. I don't think I've even asked myself that. I get such, you know what? When a performance, when I get to, if they allow me, and I fight for ensemble records still to this day, a lot of it because people are at different places. I feel like the most blessed conductor, when we go through, pages of dialogue, and so I get goosebumps no matter if it's a child or an adult. But there is something about when I can pull a performance out of a child who didn't think that they could do, or even an adult who didn't
Yeah.
think that they could do it. But children are so directable that you just need to know where to come in, where to approach them. If this doesn't work, then I come in at a different angle, or I will give them a reference point, i.e., do you have a brother? This works for me very often. Like, do you have any siblings? And they say, yeah. And I go, okay, does any of them really make you mad? Like to the point, oh, yeah. And so then I will get the performance when I say, okay, you know how irritated they go right there. There's no worries, So children are just more, they're so happy to show their elation, where adults are a little bit more guarded and like, yeah, I know I can do that all.
Yeah. I was gonna say because what's her name? There was someone you spoke to for the Melanie Minicino. I think that's her name. We spoke to for Animation Heroes and her daughter Quinn. I think what have you voice directed her on? Because I saw her in Dream Productions' new Inside Out series, and as soon as I saw her name, I was like, "Hey, Colette knows her."
Quinny, I brought Quinn in for her
Winnie.
first. Well, it's Quinn. I call her Quinny, Quinn. We go on and on, but her first gig was with me. I believe it was on Tots.
Oh, did you get tossed? Yes. Oh man, I'm so sorry. There's so many. See, there's so many stuff I didn't even
mention. No, it's okay. I know when I was kind of doing a little back, because you had asked me a couple of questions about like when I was talent coordinator, and I had to go back. Oh, when was I talent coordinator? What shows did I start with? What was my first one? Finish out with Quinn. Also during COVID, so I have her. Not unlike what we're doing right now on Zoom, but she's inside her mom's booth, and Mel is sitting there with her, and I've had to tell Mel to go away so that I can have this rapport directly with Quinn. So Quinn trusts me, and we have this rapport, and we still to this day it's a beautiful thing. And there's quite a few kids that I've directed only via Zoom because of the COVID era.
I was gonna say,
because we the beautiful thing, the only great thing about COVID was that it allowed the net to go out wider across the United States. And to this day, I'm doing auditions right now for a kid character, and I've gotten people in New York going, are you good with people that are going to be remote? And I'm like, absolutely, let's hear them. Where before I would have been a little bit more guarded, especially if they have a recording booth. Yeah, it's a monetary thing. That's another thing that a casting and dialogue director have to remember is the budget. We have a line producer, but we have to keep the budget in mind when we're casting and we're allocating incidentals. So, but Quinn was there's so many of them, so many kids. I've had such a wonderful time with Tots and Pupstruction and so many kids. I remember Robot Jones, I think, is when we first started bringing kids in. This is back at Cartoon Network, and there's always craft services, and I never thought that I would ever say, do not bring in cookies for craft services when I'm working with kids, because then I've got them in the booth and their feet are going and they're jumping off the walls and I can't get them to, So it's like, bring whatever else you want, but not sugar. You can give it to them afterwards.
yeah. I was gonna say there is a lot of kid voice actors who are the children of voice actors. You've got Zemo, who's Fred Tashior's son. But like one notable one is, of course, you've got Harlan and Posey and Grade Lau's children. But I was saying that because there is one story involving Posey that I was told by Caitlin Robrock when we were eating at the Burbank, the Smokehouse, and it was something about Gray was on a session with you, and then Posey came in the room when Gray had nipped out, and you were like, "Go get your mom" or something like that, or something. And then I can't really remember, but that's all I can remember. Or something like that.
This has been a beautiful thing for me because of all of my amazing talent or having babies, right? Or had babies over the last 5 or 6 years. And so as I've been working with more and more kids, we're like, and I had to have people who had recording booths, professional booths. So I obviously gravitated towards those who already had them set up. And so I did. Zemo from Fred Tatasciore, Eric Bauza's son, Riker.
Right, I didn't know he did voiceover.
He
Wow.
came in once and he was very young. We started too young with him.
Oh yeah, and you've got Jessica DeChico's son Dash as well. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So that's
And
good.
several. So I have the professional parent who's right there, right by
It's
if
the
I
new
need,
generation.
right? Posey, I had a show that Gray was on, and I had a character that only had a few words. The few lines, few words. Posey was, the right age. She was probably 4, maybe. Yeah, probably 4. And so she would mimic me. It was perfect. We would get these perfect little reads. Well, because she was so cute and so good and so great, they decided that they're going to write soliloquies now. Now they're giving her lines, and it was too much for her. So I think what Caitlin was referring to was when Posey was supposed to come in and do a recording with me, and it was just too much, and then she got overwhelmed and didn't want to do it. Literally, this is hazard, nope. And then when a kid says no, they're done. So I had an aha moment of, well, what about Harlan? He sounds like his sister. He's not much older than her. Do you think we can get him in the booth and try? So he came in and did that character for me for a few of the episodes as well.
Was
So
this for
that's
the audio drama that Gray was doing? I can't
um
remember.
it wasn't a drama.
Carcerum.
It's a series. Yeah. No,
Oh, was it? Oh, no. It's not.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, it
But
was for Carcerum. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Who
yeah.
was I talking
And
about? I was talking about that with someone. I can't remember who. It might have been who worked on that. Was it? It might have been Christy Reed. I can't remember who. I spoke about that with someone. I can't remember who, but yeah, it is familiar. Yeah, I do remember seeing Harlan and Posey in the cast for that. But it was more of like a story of like Gray had gone out the room and it was Gray's session, and then Posey had come in and was just
always,
something.
she would always
Okay,
do that. She would
okay,
pop
it was
in.
it was
She
it
was,
was a
she
comment.
was already in there when Gray would go out, and then she would just get on and we would talk, and then it was just like adorableness. So why not, use it? It's adorable. She's
Yeah.
she's game. She's a little bit of a ham. Harlan, not so much. This is not something Harlan wanted to ever do. And so he did it as a favor for me. And because he could sound like his sister and he could read better than Posey. So he could do more of the dialogue. So that worked out really well. And but I had to have a talk with the producers. You can't, if you're, that's another thing, if it's a one-off, that's one thing. But if
Yeah.
yeah, I will get kids in that can do one-offs with few words. But if you're looking at this going long term with much more dialogue, then we need to do a little bit more extensive search and make sure that the child is up for it. So that was a
100%.
lesson for everybody.
Yeah. It'd be so great to just meet all of these children who are following in their parents' footsteps, and just I think it's magical, really. It's just I have I can't I will be back in LA in March, but just it's just a magical place. Like all the people who live there, and just wow, I have so much to say, so many feelings I'm feeling right now. But yeah, that's for another time.
You belong here. That's why.
100%, 100%. I really want to move. I really want to move there, but there's a lot of things that I have to get out of the way first. But visiting at the moment is just fine with me.
Yes, yes. We'll take what we can get.
Yes, indeed. And maybe when I'm a bit older, who knows? But okay, right. I can't wait to talk about this. The Batman Arkham series. Now, first of all, Arkham Asylum, I've only played a bit of it, but I absolutely love it. And of course, Andrea Romano directed the original cartoon series of a Batman.
Which
Because
was
in
highly successful and amazing and brilliant.
yes, it was, yes, and then she did all the DC stuff. But I was gonna say, because Arlene Sorkin voices Harley Quinn, what was it like working with her? Because I believe that was one of the final times that she voiced Harley. She didn't return for Arkham City.
No, unfortunately. No. Long story on that. Arkham Asylum, Warner Brothers contacted me, wanted me to do another Batman game.
Oh yeah, because she
And
did the Lego Batman one, I believe.
yeah, I think Arkham was my first one of the Batman series. And at
Oh
that
right,
point
okay.
in time, Batman had not had a very successful game. The series were all amazing, but the
Yeah.
games kind of always fell a little short. So they were quite, and I was honored that they were let me do who I wanted to cast. Between for Joker, they were pretty much hands off and said, Colette, work with the licensee on this, and so I did. And so I'm like, wait, I get to choose who I want for my joke. I'm going back to the original, go back to Mark Hamill. It was amazing. A lot of long hours. I worked very closely with the developer, Paz, and who went on to do quite a few of these. And he's brilliant, as was everything about that. I mean, they just let me do my thing on that, and I was very happy how successful it was.
Definitely, yeah, because Kevin Conroy's up there, and
Yeah, there was Arlene, Paul Dini actually wrote Harley with Arlene in mind.
He did,
So
yes.
there was nobody else to do that voice but Arlene. And I had worked with her before on a few things, but when she came in and we did the first one, I think we did a couple, but it was her decision to bow out of when I recast it with Tara.
I believe, yeah, because I think she had a MS, multiple sclerosis. It had been made public when she passed away, but she had been thinging with it. I already knew this because I know her son, but she'd been thinging with it for about 15 years. So it was sort of like it was around that time that it started.
Yeah. And it was, and you could tell it, but it was her decision. And she came in and we played a little bit, and then she just looked at me and I said, we had a conversation, and it was at her will that she, laid the baton down for the next person to come in and pick it up. So, but for me to, I had no question on who was going to voice that particular character. I knew exactly who I was going to go to, and there was no question in my mind that Tara was going to knock it out of the and continue to do an amazing job with her. She's phenomenal at
I know.
Yeah.
And then for us, you did Harley for Arkham City, and also at Arkham City, you had Hugo Strange came back from the Batman animated series, this time voiced by Corey Burton. So how did you get him on board, or did you like, oh yeah, this seems like a Corey Burton character to me?
Well, so sorry, dogs are gonna bark. Sorry,
that's okay.
Corey Burton has the voice of Velvet.
Yeah, 100%.
He has such great command of his voice and his performances that you melt when he talks. So yeah, that's another casting decision that was easy enough. And it's proven itself to be true. He's just phenomenal. That was such a great moment. There was so much work that went into those games. It was phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, I remember Mark Hamill. So you have to understand, this was, in between the Star Wars phenomenon, right? Yeah. So we would be at working ridiculous hours to get, to hit our deadlines, and 11 o'clock at night with Mark in the booth and us at Salami, yeah, those are memories that are just forever going to be coddled.
100%. And what was it like working with Kevin Conroy?
Okay, so thank you, Andrea, for that, because right? Mm-hmm. I mean, the man is Batman. I mean, yeah. It was an honor. And to have him and Mark in the booth together at times was pinch me.
A dream.
Right? Yeah. This is really happening. Pinch me, pinch me. He's so generous and humble and calm. He is Batman. He was just, it was an honor, and I was glad to and grateful to be able to have that moment with him, for those moments.
I'm happy for you. I really am. Like,
Thank you.
I met him once, but it was only once. But I wish I met him a few more times. But just it happens. But I'm so glad for you that you've done
Ah,
so much. I'm having a look at my questions. Okay,
yeah,
I'm gonna
there's
ask.
so many of the people in our world that I'm just so humbled, like Peter Cullen, people who
Wait,
have been playing for years and years and years and years and years, and then they get in the booth, and I got to play. And don't ask me what show it was. I brought them in. We had the best time.
I was gonna say
But
I didn't know you worked with Peter Cullen.
yeah, 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 and oh
Wow,
yeah, there's probably quite a few that
I'm gonna have to
I
look it
I
up
I
now.
I will intentionally go and seek out and honor them in a role that I think that would honor them as people. But and then there's the celebrities, that whole, which you probably have no idea, like the Snoop Dogg I've worked with several times. I've had the pleasure of working with him. Beyonce. When you
Wow.
talk about celebrities, there's a list that goes on and on and on of people that want to come and play, but it's usually because with Beyonce, it was Wow Wow Wubsy. And it's because her niece loved that show. So we flew out to New York and we recorded her in Jay-Z's studio. And it was like her first time ever doing voiceover. You know,
Wow.
it's just things like,
Wow.
another pinch me, moment. And
Yeah.
Harvey
Um,
Korman. Harvey Korman, where a lot of your viewers won't know who that is, but he was the original voice of Gazoo on the
mhm,
Flintstones, the Little
mhm.
Martian. I think of him because you want to talk about quaking in your boots. It's when I first started, and it was a advertising gig for
Mhm.
Gazoo, and I'm sure that Harvey had been directed by the best in his, in his history of being Gazoo and him doing the voice. And he got in the booth, and he was not easy. He was going to test me and this little girl who he's never met before. And I'm sure he had been directed by, Joe Barbera himself on some of these things. So he's thinking, who is this? We came to a mutual admiration. So I was very grateful for that. But, those are the stories where you're like in awe,
Yeah.
but keep it together, and you got to direct them as though, you're not starstruck, but I am, I'm human.
I was gonna say that was one of my questions for you. Who has made you the most starstruck to work with? But Peter Cole, I'm trying to think. Aside from, I guess, Eeyore in Doc McStuffins, aside that's his only recent role that's not been Optimus Prime. 'Cause I didn't even know, was this something Transformers? I didn't even know you worked on anything
It
Transformers.
wasn't Transformers, no. And I have to do a little research myself, so I'm sorry,
That's
wasn't
okay.
thinking.
Don't worry. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, there's just been so many. I mean, Jonathan Winters. I mean, and I'm going way back, like at Hanna-Barbera, where we have some of the oldest, best comedians come in and want to do voices, and then
Yeah.
there was a junk truck that would come, at break time, and then these, which was a catering truck that came, and everybody would pile out and go get a burrito or whatever, breakfast burrito, and then my talent would go out there and hold court with all of the employees at Hanna-Barbera. And it would be just, you're trying to pull them back into the room. I mean, I had Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise on, Duck Dodgers or the Looney Tunes. I
Yeah.
mean, it just goes on, and it's just, I should have a list.
Yeah. That's okay. Don't worry. What was it like working with the original Scooby Doo cast on The Monster of Mexico and The Legend of the Vampire? Because you had, I think, Heather North, Nicole Jafe. I think it
Yes,
was
they
only those
decided
two.
that they
Yeah.
wanted to go back. Correct. Sorry, that they wanted to go back, and it was an honor. Here I am. This is my childhood too. You have to remember, I was the one that, when I first started working at Hanna-Barbera, I would walk the halls, and mind you, they had all of their cells up on the walls, and I don't even know that I realized that half of these, I sat at my TV, and as a kid watching these cartoons, and to know that I was among the people that actually created my childhood. So
Mm-hmm.
here I have this moment where it was It was great. And I think they got as much pleasure out of it as I did. So it was really fun. And I think Frank really loved
Yeah,
it.
definitely. It's like seeing old friends again, it was really lovely.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's so, so cool. Well, Colette, I only have one final question for you. I mean, maybe one day we can do a part two, but for now, I'm gonna leave it here with the final question.
Oh,
How do you think the world of voiceover has changed from when you started working at Hanna-Barbera to nowadays?
whew, it's changed a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, it was a very close knit, as far as directors go. There was a handful, and it has blossomed and allowing a lot new people to come in and play as well. So that is great for everybody. Not so much, for me. Kidding. Let me take two on that. um, how else has it changed? Well, I mean, we've got people that are now remote records. So this is allowing me to record somebody in, Missouri, or
Yeah.
in Louisiana.
Yeah. Hmm.
My submissions are cross country, which is, there's so many talented people throughout our little country here and internationally. I've
Yeah.
had, yes.
I was gonna
Um,
say, have you recorded anyone from the UK by any
I have.
chance? And is
Oh
it
yeah.
hard because of the different unions?
You know what? It's not so much if it's a SAG project, then you have to become SAG member. You'd have to be Taft-Hartleyed in, or yeah. But it's more the time change. The difference
Ah,
is, yeah. So we're up at 4 o'clock in the morning. A lot of the times that which is fine, but and just getting another studio. It's just the logistics,
yeah.
But ultimately, the sound is amazing. It's equally as good anywhere
Yeah. Hmm.
when we have our studios vetted. So yeah, things have changed, but they stay the same.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the wheel has been invented,
Hmm.
and I've been through many, many renditions of different ways of inventing this wheel. And we always come back to the way it was invented originally because it works the best. I have to say, Hanna-Barbera is probably one of the best, I don't want to say decisions, but decisions I've ever made because of the way that they taught everybody there. It was truly a college, an animation college that Mr. Hanna and Mr. Barbera set up, and nobody really changed it.
Yeah, definitely. I completely forgot to ask you, how did you actually get started at Hanna-Barbera? How were you introduced there? What were you doing before you started working at Hanna-Barbera?
Okay,
How?
it's funny because I
I don't
had
think I asked you that. I
well,
didn't
no,
ask you.
you did. I started in the business affairs department. I actually was working at an art studio, a distributor. And before that, I had worked for many a lawyer, many, 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 many a lawyer, and executive assistant in that capacity. So when I went in for an interview at a friend of mine who I worked with at the studio, at the art studio. She went in and she was, payroll, and she was accounting, and somebody there, Stephen Winigratsky, who used to be the music director, along with Bodie Chandler, needed an assistant. She said, "Oh, come and work with us. This is a great place." I had happened to have an interview with Imagineering at Disney and Hanna-Barbera, and they
Ooh.
offered me the job, but not for the music department. They said, with your resume, we want you to work with one of our attorneys, our up in business affairs. So I started off with J.R. McGinnis as his assistant. Then I went on and I supported Julie Kane Rich, who is now very, very involved with the Gotham group. Yeah, she's one of their top people over there. So
Wow. Where were Hanna-Barbera based? My mind is saying Studio City. Was that where Hanna-Barbera were based? Where in LA?
yes, you know what? We were at the foothill
On the sort
of
of hill. Yeah, the hill between
Universal
Burbank and
Studios.
Hollywood.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But it was considered Hollywood. We were on
Yeah,
Cahuenga.
yeah.
But if you were to look down from Universal Studios, there we sat, right at their feet.
Yeah, I've been on that sort of lookout there on the sort of like the hills between Hollywood and Burbank, and it's so beautiful. It's so wide. It's
It's
beautiful.
beautiful.
100%. Oh, and there's one more thing, of course. I know we spoke about it before. It's a paint pen, don't mind me. It's just a thing I like to fidget with. The US dub of Finley the Fire Engine. I reached out, I put on social media a few months ago, and we did talk about this before we started recording. So Finley the Fire Engine, there was a UK dub, there was a dub that was done in Vancouver, Canada, and then there was this US dub that people like Carla Raki and Tara Strong did, and Richard Horvitz. And you said it was Kickstart who got you working on that. I don't even know. I don't. Did Finley even air in the United States? I have
You know what?
no
I'm
idea.
not sure where they distributed it. I know that it was working with Canada, so perhaps that's what we were doing. And we weren't really dubbing; these were new scripts, so it wasn't
Oh,
like
right.
ADR anything. Yeah, it wasn't a dub, but it was new scripts and with a dream team. I've been pretty blessed with dream teams of talk about dream team because you had hinted and yes, Finley the fire truck was amazing. I don't want to skim over that. Susan Norkin, she was amazing. Susan Corbin, in getting me involved with so many of those great things, including Masters of the Universe and
Oh yeah, because that was one of
man.
Kevin Conroy's last things he did before he died. I think one of
Yeah,
those.
that was the one with Kevin Smith. So Kevin would come in and there was he's amazing,
That's me,
right?
Justice Harley. Yep. Yeah.
I love him. He was fun to work with. He was amazing to work with. We worked with a lot of amazing talent on that, but we also did the 2D version or the 3D version, CG version. Sorry, we had two going at once,
That's
and
okay.
that was we started prior COVID with the likes of Fred Tatasciore, Yuri Lowenthal. Oh my gosh, I there's just like 13 amazing talent, right? In the booth, again, I was able to get them ensembled over at
Slack
Out Loud.
NJ does.
And then we hit COVID. And literally, my last person I worked with in the booth was Tom Kenny on that show before they said, okay, we're closing all studios, we're not doing anything. So when it came back up, each one of these people had already had a recording booth. They just had to do a little bit more vetting to make it a little bit more professional. And I ran Ensemble Records via Zoom.
Wow.
Everybody had, we were the Brady Bunch with all of our squares.
Hollywood Squares.
And we ran from line one down to line end, down to
Wow.
fin, and talk about professional. And
Wow.
we still we're all on a text together. That particular group that they're
Oh,
just we went through a
so,
lot.
did you record Kevin Conroy in person or over Zoom during COVID? Was it in person? Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
he came in. We were lucky enough for Masters of the Universe for that particular one. He came in, and I believe he came in. Derek, Mr. Bader, otherwise Diedrich Bader's. God, sorry, we always call each other by Mr. Bader and Miss Sunderman.
The other Batman.
Diedrich and Kevin. So I had Batman sandwich. I got hugged on, and I have both of them in the booth together, and that was phenomenal. There was a lot of pinch me moments during that recording with Kevin Smith. He has a tendency, Kevin Smith, and he came and played with me on a Lego. Also,
Oh, wow.
he was the villain. Yeah, he did an
That's
amazing
awesome.
job. Yeah,
Wow. That
nothing
sounds like so
high
much fun.
esteem for him.
Oh yeah, definitely. And Tom Kenny as well, you mentioned before. I've not managed to meet him or anything, but loads of my friends have, and I'm just like, wow, I'm being left behind here.
We'll
He'd
make
be
it
great.
happen. Yeah.
Are you sure? Oh, that's
A bucket
fantastic.
list for me to get Tom Kenny and Jeff Bennett and
I
to
was gonna say there's another one as well.
oh, send
What's
the
it?
list, girl. Send the
Oh,
list.
no, I was gonna ask Tres McNeil. You've worked with her, right? Countless
Talk
times.
about a dame. She is everything.
I
That
need to
woman
move.
is,
I need to
woo,
move to Hollywood to see all these people.
man. You need. I only my only hesitation is that I want you to meet these people in person. Tress McNeil is a everything you could possibly want in a voiceover. I'm gonna call her a dame. The woman that is,
100%.
oh,
Yeah. Wow.
amazing.
Just so many people and so many stories to tell.
So
Wow.
many. Yeah,
Right.
2 years.
I'm gonna do like an outro now and then I'll probably say goodbye to you if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Well, Colette, that was really fun. Thank you so much for letting me talk to you for the past hour. Thank you for letting me peck your head in about everything knowledge based. Whereabouts can we find you on the internet? Have you got any social medias you want to promote? Is there any projects, a website?
I'm on Instagram. Yeah, no, I don't have a website. You can find me, probably Instagram is the best way to find me, but I think it's Collette_Bennett or Sunderman.
Okay.
But yeah, I can be found. I'm around.
Okay.
I'm still
Okay. Yeah.
working. I'm still doing.
Around.
We're still chugging.
Yay!
I
Thank
don't
you
anywhere.
so much to everyone for watching this video. It's been an honor to talk to Colette, and maybe very soon, Kris Zimmerman. Just hinting at that, just hinting. But I am working on it. But thank you for watching this episode of In Conversation with ATF. I hope you have a great day, whatever you're doing all night, or whatever time zone you're in. And I'll see you around. So goodbye from me and Colette. Take care. Bye bye. And
Bye.
cut.